Hey guys, you've joined us live at Moneycontrol. I'm Manisha Gupta, and joining me on the show is Deepak Pareek. He's founder at HNYB. Deepak, hi, thank you so much for joining us. And when you look at across agriculture as a commodities, we've seen prices stabilize. Some of the prices have come off its highs as well. The government has had a very keen eye on inflation. But pulses is one area that refuses to give in, and we've seen prices hold on. And the view is that all of this year as well, we could see the prices elevated. Now, the budget is round the corner, and this is one area the government perhaps could talk about. We already have seen the minister talk about self-sufficiency in sense of tuar in next 3 years or perhaps, and those steps will need to be taken now. What's your sense on what needs to be done in the segment which is pulses during this budget?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Manisha, for inviting me. For sure, government is very proactive when it comes to controlling the price. And we know this is an election year and the prices become very critical for next government to get into the shoes. Now, when we talk about what can government do, so first thing I believe it's strongly what they are already doing is that trying to buy at a higher price and then make it available for the consumers at a lower price. That also create a sentiment in the market, which leads to the rest of the player also being cautious about taking speculative interest because they know the government will be doing something which will bring price down. Now, when we talk about pulses, one of the challenges of the pulses is that the fundamentals are stacked against the government. So it's not that the government is not trying to solve this issue. But there have been a lot of areas of concern when it comes to pulses, and specifically when we talk about pigeon pea or tuar or urad, because we are having a limitation of the origin from where we can get these products. And unfortunately, because of the previous year and the current year's weather, the productivity is pretty low in both of these commodities, which has led to deficit of close to between 1 million to 1.4 million metric tons of these commodities. And this is where the government cannot do anything to produce, even if the other origins are not producing. And one thing which I believe they should be doing is that they need to allocate to far more funds for the stabilization of price in the market. So previous budgetary allocation of 1,500 crores is not sufficient for this. I think they'll have to increase it by at least 8 to 9% and bringing it close to 10,000 crores and ensure that this year we try to build very strong buffers in tuar, in chana, because chana also we are seeing the problem is that the government has nearly liquidated every that grain of what chana they were having. And this year, in case chana crop which looks not to be too great, if that happens, then even chana will be under severe pressure. We're already seeing those pressures in tuar, urad and chana today. And going forward, I believe government needs to have more money for creating a robust buffer.
Well, absolutely. Buffer stock is one part of it. And as you said, stabilization fund is something that the government will need to create. The other thing is about post-harvestation also. I mean, that is one area. Farmer infrastructure is another thing that most of the street believes you could hear something on.
Yes, sure. I believe government came out with agriculture infrastructure fund, but it is more of giving credit to the farmers and or the industries to build those infrastructure. While it is picking on its own pace, but it is not something which is revolutionary where a lot of people will start investing in infrastructure. Going forward, I believe government will have to facilitate more and by giving out more subsidies. I know subsidies is not a word which this government like too much, but at the same time, in case we want to increase by 2x or 3x our infrastructure, specifically storage infrastructure, then we need to ensure that the incentives are in form of cash subsidies rather than just interest subversion, because that is not picking up to the level where it should be picking up. We already have allocated close to 1 lakh crore. But if we see that picking of that has not happened to the level where the government was comfortable, that it has really picked up well. And going forward, I believe we need to provide a lot of subsidies to those who are putting these infrastructure in place. Secondly, also assuring the income to those who are investing in these infrastructure. That has become another gray area for a very simple reason that Indian farmers are still not storing for across the year their commodities. It is very, very seasonal business. And this leads to a lot of cash flow challenges for those who are building these infrastructure. And such support through ensuring that the minimum occupancy is guaranteed by the government. I believe these steps can go in a long way in building this infrastructure.
Deepak, I was going through your budget wish list, and an interesting point clearly has been about a commodity board. I mean, that is something that we definitely are missing.
Yes, surely, because if you see that across the world, wherever some specific commodities are strong, for example, we talk about almonds in the US or walnut in the US, and similarly, fresh vegetables and fruits from Netherlands, they have been very proactive in promoting their produce across the globe. And India also, while we were on track of going towards $100 billion as an export from agriculture commodities, because of recent changes in import-export policy, we have found that that target is now actually getting revised, and we are having shortfall of export than what we used to have the previous year. And going forward, I believe we have to promote spices, we have to promote fresh foods and vegetable. And for that, a board which is not directly controlled by the government, but supported and facilitated by the government is need of the hour. And for each of the commodities, whether we talk about cardamom, we talk about pepper, we talk about turmeric, we talk about chili, we need to have a very specific, because each of these commodities are very, very specific, having its own nuances and value chain considerations. And this is where I believe independent board for each of these commodities would go a long way in ensuring that India has a very stable export outlook going forward.
The couple of pet projects of the government clearly have been e-mandis and FPOs, and while there is not so much that we perhaps will see on 1st of Feb, but infrastructure and farmer is something that the government absolutely cannot afford to ignore. So do you see an extension of couple of these events continuing?
Yes, see, FPO has been an excellent scheme. Unfortunately, the growth or the adoption of that has been a little bit slow. But for any new policy for farmers to understand, it takes time. So we need to have a patience with the government also. Policy is just not like a magic wand that you'll just move it and suddenly things is going to change. We already have 10,000 FPO. Now it is about investing in those FPO, building them strongly. And for I believe it is a need of the hour that government just not facilitate formation of the FPO, but try to create market linkages for that. And market linkages are only possible in I'll say that financially viable manner for the farmers, where they become self-sufficient after 3 years or 5 years, when we have a very strong India brand in food. And I believe that this is where India need to leverage itself and put more money, just like we had Make in India, we had Digital India, we had Startup India. We now need to have Grow in India, and that brand needs to go global, and government needs to put a lot of money behind creating that global brand, where the trust in Indian brand is leveraged by all those who are growing these commodities in India. Second area I believe India need to look at very strongly is that we need to ensure that our farmers are incentivized in case they are growing a good crop with a higher productivity than the rest of their peers. So typically incentives for enhanced productivity need also be just like we have in manufacturing, where if you are having a performance which is better than others, you are incentivized. I believe that need to happen also for the farmers. And these two steps would ensure that our farmers are more profitable going forward.
Well, yes, those are some recommendations, even expectations and a wish list coming in for the budget from the pulses sector and overall agriculture. Deepak, as always, thank you so much for joining us and putting it quite articulately for the minister to watch.